Every Saturday night at midnight, Adult Swim is building you a better cartoon show.
We call it Toonami.
And next Saturday, we've got a special musical guest. Ginger Root is ready to rock the end of the block with their musical movie, Shinbangumi.
If you're not already a fan, you will be.
Toonami, next Saturday starting at midnight.
Entertainment.
On the next all-new episode of Lazarus.
We're going to infiltrate in 2 teams.
Your mission is to catch Sam's eye by putting on a show and wait for his personal invite. If you manage to establish contact with him, lure him to a secluded area. This is his turf, and the last thing we want is for him to run off because we caused a scene.
Stop right there, boys!
Lazarus, next Saturday at midnight on Toonami, next day on Max.
Hello everyone, welcome to our podcast Toonami Therapy. We're recording on April 15th of 2025. I'm Michael.
Yeah, hello, I'm Tommy.
And, well, yeah, I guess we can just get into it. Well, first, since we usually do like to mention announcements of anything new regarding series we watched previously, they did announce it. JoJo Part 7 is getting an anime. It will probably never.
I saw that.
Yeah, it will probably never air on Toonami, but it's out there. Because Netflix has the rights now, so we'll see. I have some interest in it. I have heard Part 7 was considered pretty decent, so we'll see when we get to that. We might end up watching it at some point. Anyway, nothing else to say there really, other than I guess I'll just throw it out. Apparently they're doing some short video Licorice Recoil episodes. I don't really know what they're going to be about. They're going to be on Crunchyroll. It looks like they're just going to be like some shorter 6 or 7 minutes things. We aren't going to be watching them right away, but we probably will check them out at some point.
Right.
Okay. All right. So, with all that said, I guess we can just jump into the series we watched, including and beginning, as always, with the series that we watched that aired on Toonami, which brings us then to episode 2 of Lazarus. Okay, so in this episode, we get introduced to, I guess, the rest of the Lazarus team. We also, oh, by the way, I can't remember if we discussed this on the podcast last week, but we were noting how we mentioned, hey, every time the reason his sentence was up to, what did he say, 880 was because let's see, he said he got sentenced to 3, but every time you escape, your sentence gets doubled. And we were noticing, but that won't get you to 880 3 times 2. And I expressed, well, maybe the other character will note it's not a multiple and it'll be a joke. And nope, it just kind of gets glossed over. So,
yep.
Maybe it happened because of he didn't escape immediately, so maybe he would have been in prison for some amount of time and then, escape, and then it gets doubled, and then would go back and then escape, and that would be some smaller amount, and that's how it would do it. To be fair, I think he said that he thought it was up to 880 or what? No, he said 888 actually. So maybe he was just wrong. Maybe he was bad at math. So that tiny thing aside, what we're going on here is we basically get some information. So what are all their names? The main character, Axel, that's right. So they all have, so he and the others are basically wearing tracking bracelets that will, that you can't take off and will trace them. And I'm thinking, why didn't he have this on, one of these things on while he was in the prison?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, what ends, they find where, because they're trying to find that Skinner guy. They're searching for him, and they think they found him. They get to this bunker where they think he is, and then there's a bunch of stuff happens because there's all these other people who show up and are trying to go after him. But then it turns out, no, it wasn't actually him. And so, yeah, that was the episode, basically, in terms of plot.
Yeah. So I had a big problem with the first half of this episode where it was this very heavy-handed political propaganda type of thing. And, I'm thinking of, well, how can you do something like that without hammering someone over the head with propaganda? And I was like, well, of all series, my favorite one, Shangri-La, was able to mix politics and dystopian future stuff and not make it feel like you're getting beaten over the head with political views. But this episode wasn't so graceful. Although I do have to admit it was a pretty funny thing to see a David Letterman look-alike, and his name on his cup was even like similar to David Letterman. But yeah, I checked it out halfway through the first episode. I checked out halfway through the episode. Then I was like, okay, I'll come back and watch the second half. And second half wasn't so bad. It's still one of these barely believable plots where, there's so many things about it that are just hard to believe. It's kind of like how I was watching. I just went to my other room to see my parents watching an episode of NCIS, and like there's a guy who holds up a gun to the up to the good guy, and then within seconds the good guy somehow manages to get the gun out of his hands and then points it at the bad guy. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what this is like. It's like they're kind of ridiculous in how easy it is for the main characters, but at least it was passable. So I think I'll give it another week, and we'll see if I'm able to get this thing past the 3-episode rule. But yeah.
You mentioning NCIS just made me, I was just suddenly remember, oh man, that show is still on. So I was just curious. I was like thinking, okay, are any of the original characters still on this series, 22 seasons in? So I decided to look it up. I'm looking at the Wikipedia thing. It's got this little chart of, when people were there. It looks like, depending on how you count it, there's either 1 or 0 who are still here, because one character is still there. Let's see, Timothy McGee, who was who was recurring in the first season and then became a main starting in the second. So if you count him, then yeah, he's been there the whole time. But everyone else has no one else has been on the series the whole time. I was surprised. Oh, Jibbs is gone? Wow. Okay. I thought he was gone after season 19, it looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Did he die? Did he get transferred in the series or what?
I have no idea what happened to him. I just know that they had problems with the actor himself, Mark Harmon, and they were so he had to go. So
yeah, I mean,
got written out of the show.
Okay, yeah. That's just a serious. So yeah, technically there is one character who's still there, who was there at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sometimes interesting for these super long running shows to just look at these grids that just show all of the people that were main and how long they've actually been there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so on to the series itself. It was weird because I was going to mention about how there's some political stuff, but I don't know if I would even say it's propaganda or heavy-handed because I'm not actually sure exactly what it was saying. Because it seemed, okay, so it mentions that the guy gives a speech at the UN about like the importance of climate change and how we're all going to die in 3 years when the polar, I can't remember exactly what he said. I assume it was something like the ice caps melt and Earth becomes uninhabitable. He said something like that. Okay. And then it mentions, some people, some countries just left midway through the speech, which I don't know. Is that like a thing? Do people really just leave midway through speeches there? But here's like the thing. So initially I think, okay, so, they're trying to say something about environmentalism. But from what I remember of the series, that was 3 years ago. So that means it didn't happen. So is it saying, or at least it was about 3 years ago. So is it saying, oh, well, he was completely wrong about that? Because it didn't mention that, but that was from what I remember. I thought he disappeared and they mentioned maybe this wasn't a full 3 years ago, but it's close. So I was just trying to figure out whether what we were supposed to take it was from, oh, he was actually wrong. He was fear mongering, which seems like a very different thing than you might think at first, but then maybe it's not. I don't know. It's so weird because I haven't seen a series feel so overtly political without me actually being able to figure out what its politics are.
Yeah,
there's that. There's a part where, they have a press conference with the FDA where everyone's like, hey, how could you approve a drug like this? And I'm thinking, is this trying to make some sort of commentary? Is am I over analyzing this? I don't know. I can't tell. It's so weird because it feels political, but I do not know exactly what the politics are.
Yeah, good point.
So yeah, I just kind of hope they don't focus too much on that because look, like there's a lot of things about the series that don't really make much sense. But if the series can get by with style and action and fun, I can overlook that. So try not to get into this sort of stuff. Just have fun, dumb action and jokes. Like just do that, and I think the series can work. All right. Let's see. Did I have anything else to say about this? No, I think that's all of it. So after that, we move on to Blue Exorcist episode 22. All right, so let's see. They're basically they're all going after, I guess, the demons, except they're going like too far with it and getting rid of some of the not evil ones or something. I don't. Basically, what happens is the big thing is that what was his name? The grandfather character, the one who's anime original, I should stress. Basically, he was saying, well, if we do all this stuff, it will destroy Gehenna and everything will be great. Except then they are going. Let's see. Except then he wants to make Rin a sacrifice to do it all, and Yukio doesn't want them to do it. Except then when the other characters appear, I think Yukio now has the bad powers or something. I don't know. Look, it's kind of confusing. They threw a whole lot. It's so weird. They threw so much stuff at us in this episode, and I'm thinking, okay, look, I know you want to get to a conclusion or whatever in this, but then why did we have an episode about birthday cake? It's very weird to try to describe it. I will say that at least the little cat-like thing showed up again. So I'm like, oh, okay, that thing's kind of cute. I kind of like him being back.
Yeah, I wasn't too interested in this episode myself.
And
yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to, man, here's the problem. You and I have some conversations off the podcast, and I want to say something, and I'm trying to remember. I know I said it to you. Did I say it on the podcast, though? Basically, and this is especially the case here, a weird thing about Blue Exorcist is it keeps, like, referring to stuff like, real world stuff, like, the Vatican. They mention that a bunch. These are supposedly, serving them and things, but these are like actual organizations and places and stuff, and yet they have so little to do with the actual ones that you might as well just call them something totally different. Now, this was kind of a thing, even when we were based on the manga, but it's gotten so much more extreme once we're in filler. It's just weird to me that they'll say, oh, well, we got rid of all these higher up people. I can't remember if they specified whether they were also talking about bishops or not, but they specify that apparently the Pope was replaced, which is not an easy thing to do exactly. Like, normally it only happens they resign or they die. And while there might theoretically be some mechanisms for getting rid of one while they're in office, it would obviously be something crazy controversial to do. And I know this is just like a one-off like statement. They just mention, oh, that happened, but then they don't say anything about it later. They could have just dropped it off. But that's, again, my point in just how it's talking about real people, organization, places, but they're just very different than it. I mean, like, think about what would happen if, some of like the higher like cardinals of the Catholic Church or whatever just said, yeah, okay, the current Pope, they are not the Pope. We are putting a new one in place. And that would like cause all this giant news in the world that's just like, no, we're just going to go over this. I'm probably going too much into just that thing, but it's just an example of all of these things about how they keep using real stuff, and it just feels such like weird flavoring with all of this. Again, why even include all of the real world analogs if they're just gonna base when you might as well have just said it, okay, we are the Exorcists and we are working for the like Exorcist Alliance, for example. just call it that. So I don't know, but setting that aside, because I guess you can just like say, okay, maybe this is this is presumably some alternate world where things work different. Where, although again, that brings up the question: why name it after all this real life stuff? I'm left confused about the whole thing. Is just like I said, everything is just thrown at you so quickly and it's confusing, which I already said that it was confusing because they were doing it quickly and they had already, while they had spent an episode on things like birthday cake and, okay, I'm not actually sure what point I'm trying to make anymore. The bottom line is that it wasn't that great of an episode, outside of seeing the cat again.
Yeah, I didn't really like this episode all that much, but I haven't really enjoyed this show since it split off from canon. So, yeah. Yeah,
I think like the first few episodes afterwards could have, more passed for things, but now we're just at the point where, we're just kind of, because none of this stuff was actually supposed to happen. It was just stuff they made up. So, and it's possible, I guess, to do that sometimes, but here we're definitely in one of the weaker versions of it. Maybe we can just explain the whole thing. I mentioned it before about how some people theorized Star Trek V was just a dream Kirk had, and I was going to and one of the defenses is to point out that Kirk is like considered like the best guy ever in the movie because William Shatner wrote and directed it, but in universe you could say, see, it shows it's Kirk's dream because in it he makes himself like the coolest. And
Yeah.
I read that apparently a difference even early on is that in the source material, after his classmates find out, oh, Reen, oh wow, he's the son of Satan, he's been keeping that from us, they're like suspicious about him for longer, whereas in the anime it's just kind of like, okay, I guess we had one adventure and now we're over it. And I was thinking, that's your explanation. See, it's Reen's dream because he wants everyone to accept him again. So it's just being done way faster. Now, I'm not sure exactly why he'd be dreaming about his grandfather trying to kill him, but I don't know. Maybe it was like
It's a nightmare.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say maybe he just watched some weird anime before going to bed, but yeah. So yeah, that was. Yeah, we'll see. We've still got several episodes left of this. We've still got 3. So from what I remember, it doesn't, manage to pull out and off a landing, but we'll see. Okay. Yeah. Then we got One Piece episodes 717 and 718. Okay, so what goes on here is Kairos is fighting Diamante. We get a bunch of stuff about how he wants to do it and how Rebecca shouldn't. So, okay, I don't even know why she's in this scene then, but anyway, he manages to win. Yay. Meanwhile, we get a bunch of fighting stuff between Zoro and Pika. Essentially.
Yep.
And yep, the other characters also show up, I guess, to help him. So they're going to be... So yeah, I guess next we'll just finish off the battle against Pika.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when are we going to get back to Luffy versus Doflamingo?
Get back to? We haven't even actually had Luffy versus Doflamingo. I mean, I guess they kind of... Yeah, as soon as, right when you thought they were going to fight, that's when Doflamingo had Bellamy fight at him. And I guess at least Luffy and Doflamingo were still there, but then they ended up getting separated. So, but I'm kind of curious. Let me skim over this list of episode synopses, see if I can see anything about when Luffy and Doflamingo actually fight. It looks... Actually, it looks like we might finally be getting to that in a few episodes, so...
Okay.
All right. Yeah, in terms of the episode, I'm just kind of annoyed. I'm just like, why... Considering, again, remember, the big thing is, okay, Kairos wants to get revenge on Diamante because Diamante's the one who killed his wife. Okay, fine, but that wife was also Rebecca's mother, and it feels kind of lame that she doesn't do anything here. I think the point it's trying to make is, oh, well, no, she's not really a fighter or anything. She just did all that because she was forced to, which was why she never actually hurt anyone in the arena and just somehow won all of her bouts by making people, fall off or whatever, which didn't really make that much sense, but whatever. And so I kind of can get that, but at the same time, if she's going to be here, I just wish she would have done something. Like, even if you don't want her to directly fight, do something to like, help out Kairos so that she kind of had a function here is what I want. Like, even just something like, oh, he loses his weapon. Well, she just gives it to him or whatever. That's at least something. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that was my big annoyance. Okay, so yeah. Oh, one thing I wanted to briefly mention. Last episode, I was wondering, this whole thing, where, I'm being beaten, now I'm going to have my big flashback, and now I'm defeated, and it doesn't matter. And I was wondering, had One Piece done that before? And I was thinking, well, I guess Baby 5's flashback kind of had that, but, but I don't know if that would really count because of the fact that it's not like she was going to be defeated, then she had a flashback. It's more like she had the flashback, and then as a result of the flashback decided, yeah, I'm just going to change sides now. And then I guess she was defeated by her flashback in a way. So still kind of a different thing. No one brought it up. I just brought it up because I just remembered it and wanted to mention it. So for anyone who had thought of that when listening to the previous episode, there's my answer. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else about Toonami, or will we move on?
No, we can move on.
All right. We've got episode 50 of Yu Yu Hakusho. So, while Yusuke's asleep, he and Keiko almost get attacked by some demons, but hey, some of the other people they previously fought show up and help them, like Jin and Rinku and the other guys whose names I can't remember. Again, showing why it was kind of maybe not the best idea to just leave Keiko and Yusuke out there without anyone else. But ultimately, what we get back to the fight. Let's see if I remember right. Okay. So Kuwabara fights again, and he gets warped back to the other arena again. So Genkai ends up fighting, and we find out that the head of the other guy is the other team, the older guy. Well, he's not really older. He's actually this some weird guy with this weird clown getup who maybe the author decided, well, maybe I should just make a really threatening version of this and made Hisoka in Hunter x Hunter. He goes up against Genkai, and Genkai ends up beating him actually pretty easily by pointing out that, while he actually knows a whole lot of stuff, he's actually not that strong himself. What did she call him? A souped up car without an engine. And then she wins, and thus our team wins, and we're going to go into the finals next.
Yeah, I was surprised that this match was so easy for Team Messi, and they didn't even need Messi himself to win this match. So these guys must have been really bad at fighting. How did they even make it into this? A pretty straightforward episode here. Not really much to say about it. There weren't any quotes that I can remember that were pretty funny or anything.
Well, I did like not a quote, but I did like the joke where when the guy, was it Suzuki? That was it. I think that was was it Suzuki or Suzuka? Suzuki. That was it. So he gets angry at one in the audience and throws this thing at them. Actually, I can't remember. Was it a playing card? Did he actually do that, or was it something else? He did something anyway, and it hit them, and then they just kind of slumped over and bled. And then when we cut to them later, we see that same person, and they're still slumped there, except they've got this halo over their head randomly. So that joke was kind of funny. In terms of quotes, though, there actually is a pretty good one in the preview where Yusuke's saying, let's see, and once the other very quick semifinals over, we'll know which team we're going to fight. Team Toguro or team... Yeah, right. So, yeah. Nothing else to say, but I thought those jokes were kind of funny. All right, so past that, we've got Shangri-La Frontier episode 47. Okay, so Sunraku and what's her name again? I can't remember. Katsuo's the person who's on his team. Okay, I need to see.
Kay?
What?
No, that's you mean Kay's friend?
Kay, yeah. Well, what's her name? Let me look that up again. I'm forgetting. it. I feel dumb for not remembering. I know the other one. Let's see. Megami Natsume. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what? So in the game that they're all going to be playing, Sunraku and her basically go up against each other. Sunraku manages to win. So I guess showing he's actually got some great skills. Although then off screen he gets beaten by Pencil Gun and he's really annoyed about it. Okay. So basically, yeah. The other thing is that Katsuo wants Sunraku to go up against him with the Meteus character in order to test against that, and we don't really know why yet. I'm gonna guess it. Well, I'm assuming that the reason is because Sylvia, who they keep talking up as this really great gamer, beat him in a previously with that, but I don't know. I don't know if they actually say that. It's just implied, and because we get a flashback to the two. It ends with a flashback of the two going against each other. I assume we'll see that in the next episode, but that's what I assumed it was. And yeah, that was basically our episode, I think.
Yeah. Pretty funny dialogue between the characters, especially whenever Sunraku gets beaten. Also, he's still wearing that ridiculous gas mask, which it's like, it is funny, but like, I have a hard time taking him serious, you know? So I don't know what he's doing. But yeah, by the way, this video game they're playing sounds a lot like something called Apex Legends. That's what it reminds me of. So I don't know if they got the idea from that or not. I mean, obviously, we don't have, virtual reality version of it, but that's kind of what the plot of the video game sounds like. I thought it was pretty good.
I think this actually, well, it's a little tricky. So the web novel, because I remember looking at this, and if I remember correctly, this part of when it was this part, what we're in the anime was published like way back in 2018, I think, in the web novel form, and then it was later turned into a manga and then anime. So if that might have been totally, so that would have predated Apex Legends. On the other hand, that's obviously just like written in text. It was a manga that like gave visuals to a lot of things. So that might. So it's possible that even if the original idea wasn't, the person who drew the manga was more inspired by that and kind of made it look more like that, maybe. But I'm not sure. But yeah. It was a kind of a fun episode on the whole, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Okay. So. Right, not too much else to say about that, but I guess we'll move on to it's funny, Hyouka episode 7.
Yep. Wow, there's not really much to say about this episode. It's just they go on a hot springs thing, so we're expecting to have the swimsuit episode, but we never get around to that. Basically, they see some sort of shadow in the night, and for some reason that becomes super important, and they have to find out, they have to know what this shadow was, and then they go through a thing where Hotaro, of course, figures out the mystery. I guess that's what the theme of this show is that Hotaro figures out every mystery. The problem is these mysteries are so banal and trivial that they don't really get me interested in it. So yeah, I can't say it was a really good episode. I was a little disappointed. So yeah, that's what I think.
My problem with so many of with a number of the mysteries, I can't remember if that was the case for this one because I kind of forgot most of a lot of it. But just like ones where it's just a matter of the answer is just something I'm thinking, okay, how would someone figure that out? Like, okay, how did he get these classes mixed up? Well, it's because a lowercase a looks kind of like a lowercase d, and that was it, basically. That was last episode, I think. This one, I don't know if it was anything quite like that. I can't actually remember the specifics of this mystery, unfortunately. Well, actually, I'll be honest. This episode, I actually struggled to remember much about it, other than they talked a bunch about siblings in it. That was the thing.
And about ghost stories.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not a very memorable episode. No.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So, episode 63 and 64 of ReZero. Hang on, let me just familiar assessment. Okay. All right. So basically, the first episode is Garfield fights against some guy who we are told was actually a really, really important person in history. And he wins. And that was basically the first episode. Okay. So for our second episode, we have remember Teresa, was it
Teresia?
Teresia. I was trying to remember was pronounced Teresa or Teresia. So thanks for telling me. Yeah, he's fighting against her because she was his dead wife. Although I think it's really just her corpse being controlled or reanimated or whatever that stuff. Anyway, he's not able to beat her, but Reinhardt shows up and manages to do it. We also get a very big flashback about her.
Yep, a very big flashback.
Yes, it's basically most of the episode. Essentially, she basically got the Sword Saint gift, which the thing about this episode is I'm trying to remember, because I remember this from the source material where I remember everything kind of being explained. I'm trying to remember, there's some stuff here that is not explained, I don't think, in this episode. But was it explained in a previous episode or this season or not? For example, because it didn't specify, although I guess it implied, did it specify that the Sword Saint skill or whatever it's called, I can't remember exactly, it passes from one family member to the other, but it can happen while one is alive. That's why when she went off to fight the white whale, she died, because even though she had that ability, midway through the battle, it just suddenly transferred to Reinhardt, and since she didn't have it, she died as a result of that. Now, I can't remember. Did they say that previously in this season or not? And that was the whole reason why Wilhelm was back then so annoyed at Reinhardt. So I can't remember, even though he got over it later. I can't remember. But anyway, we got that. The basic thing is that, yeah, she got that skill, but didn't really want to do sword fighting. But then Wilhelm shows up and is able to do it instead of her, because he actually beats her. And so, yes, we now finally get the explanation for that question we had, because we discussed this. I remember way back in season 1, we were thinking, okay, so we get this flashback about Wilhelm and Teresia and how when he beats her, she doesn't have to keep fighting in the wars with the sword because he's better. And we were thinking, well, wait, why can't they just both fight together? well, we finally got the explanation. It's because she didn't want to be doing that to begin with. It's just that she was so good at it that she had to keep doing it. And now that they had someone who was stronger, she didn't have to. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad we got an explanation for that. I'm not sure we needed to spend an entire episode to give that explanation for that thing in season 1, but we did get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was also that thing where Al was fighting against that shape-shifting enemy.
Oh, right. There was that. Sorry. That I forgot that. Yeah, I forgot about that. That was also there. Was that in the first or second episode? I can't remember.
I think that was in the first episode.
Okay, that would make more sense. Because so I retract my statement when saying it was just that bit with Garfield. There was another thing there.
Yeah, and this shape-shifting thing like turned into Priscilla, but Al doesn't really even care. He just goes ahead and just destroys this thing. Now, what is that? Is that one of the Sinar bishops or what?
Yeah, that's Capella, I think her name was. The one who looks pretty young. I think she was the Sin Archbishop of Lust, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so they had that battle, and but you covered everything pretty well, and episodes were okay. I just wish we didn't spend that much time on the flashback. So,
Yeah, I'm also still wondering, because like I said, I was able to... The flashback by itself, if some of the stuff I discussed wasn't previously established, and I can't remember if it was, I know we knew that Wilhelm was upset with Reinhard about what happened with Teresia, but I can't remember if it's specified prior to this that it was specifically because she lost the Sword Saint protection at that point. So I just can't remember if that was it. So like when Reinhard says, well, I killed her, it's because of he just refers to the fact that he got the power transferred to him, so she was left without it and got killed. But I feel like a bunch of this stuff was too spread out, and if you don't remember everything, it's going to be pretty confusing to you. Yeah, that was that. I was honestly surprised by how short the Garfield fight was. I feel like when I read it in the web novel form years ago, it went on way longer. Now, maybe it's just a matter of it goes faster when you cut, when you are just showing the action and don't have to keeping any of the inner monologuing or whatever, but I was thinking, okay, this is probably going to go on for a while. Oh, wow, we're already done? Okay. So yeah. So yeah, these episodes were okay. I don't think they were as good as the previous one, but at this point, maybe part of the problem is we're just going up against characters who they aren't like the major ones. These are just these kind of resurrected people that one of the Sin Archbishops brought. It's kind of like when you were fighting in Bleach. Remember in Bleach when they make it to Hueco Mundo, but there were those Espada they fight before they actually come up against any of the ones. What were they called? They're the ones who weren't the 10 Espada, the ones that were lower than that. I can't remember their name. Do you remember?
No.
Darn it. I'm trying to remember. Well, it felt like... Let's see. Oh, okay. The Privaran Espada, I think they were called, the lower ones. So it was like that, where it's okay, I guess we have them here for the fights, but they're not the actual villains we really care that much about. That was the Espada. Well, some of them, honestly. Looking back, I think about half of them were pretty forgettable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Yep, we can think that's everything. And yeah, that's it for ReZero. We're done with that then. So that covers all of the stuff we watched for this week.
Yep.
And
so, top episode time.
Yeah. So
okay, so yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, for Toonami, for me, it's pretty easy. It's Lazarus. Well, non-Toonami is a little trickier for me. I'm kind of torn between Shangri-La Frontier and Yu Yu Hakusho. I think I'll give a small win. I think Yu Yu Hakusho edged it out just a little.
Okay, so since I did not like any of the 3 shows on Toonami this week, I'm just going to go with Blue Exorcist as the one I hated the least. And Shangri-La Frontier wins for the 4th time in 5 weeks. So clearly, as much as I sometimes criticize Shangri-La Frontier, it's still pretty good. So yeah. So I may say it's not all that great, but it is pretty good. So Hyouka sadly has not made it into the top spot once, which is a bad sign for where it's going to end up on the end of year ranking. And best girl of the week, we have to give that to Megumi from Shangri-La Frontier. So there you have it.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I don't really have much to add, honestly. So
yeah.
Do you have anything?
No, not really. Not this week.
Okay. Yeah. I have gotten a little farther in the second part of 1,000-Year Blood War arc of Bleach, but I think I'll hopefully be done with that by next week, and then I guess I can just try to throw out my thoughts on it all at once.
Okay.
So, yeah, I will just say one thing, because I know how you mentioned that they recast, Kenpachi's voice for this. And the problem is, I hear him and he just keeps sounding to me like a grumpier version of Frankie from One Piece. It's the same voice actor as that, yeah. And I just keep hearing Frankie. Okay, so yeah, I don't have anything else to say really. So I guess we'll see you next week. One thing to note. For this week, we did 2 episodes of ReZero and 1 of Shangri-La Frontier. Next week is reversed. 2 episodes of Shangri-La Frontier and 1 episode of ReZero, and the rest are all expected to be the same.
Okay.
All right. And with that, I think that's all, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Monkey D. Luffy wants to become king of the pirates. The only problem? He can't swim. But he's gathered a crew. And together, they'll seek the legendary treasure of Gold Roger. Things are gonna get a little strange along the way.
Who is that rubber boy?
One Piece. Premieres Saturday, April 23rd from 10 to 11 p.m. Don't let the straw hat fool you. Only Toonami.